if you are in your late 20s, early 30s, late 30s, and you're single, you are somehow toxic. There's something that's not working.
That's not true.
You've been dating since you were 16 years old. Like now you damn near 40 and you still single. There is something wrong with you. Honestly speaking, when I hit 25, I was like, damn, there is something probably wrong.
This is crazy.
Maybe it's toxic.
Is this what I'm hearing?
But why? Men get married by the time they're in their late 20s, early 30s.
But toxicity isn't the only reason.
Okay, but I'm just saying, so or you just being single out here for no reason.
Yes,
a man find a good woman, a woman find a good man, you just single and you're not
Some
toxic.
women don't want men. Some women don't want marriage.
Most women that I know that are in their late 20s, early 30s.
And are they successful and happy?
They are successful in certain areas, but the relationship thing, I know why they're not successful
because they're your friends.
And no, I know there's men that I know. Okay, when you see a 40-year-old man that's not married, that never been married, never been in a serious relationship, you think there's something wrong with
Why can't he just choose to want to be single?
Welcome back to the channel. And hey, you already see we got a good one today. So this is basically 8 at the table, and they're basically talking about why are you 40 and single? Even though, you know, the first lady did talk about late 20s, early 30s. Now, before I get too deep into it, I do want you to notice the things on the screen. I think sometimes people come out and they hang out with me without understanding that I'm all about marriage. You know, I want men and women to get married, right? And over the last year, 2024, I've been really leaning more into Black love, although most of the information that I give can actually be used for men to women. Both men and women can use it. And I would also say if you're not Black, unless I'm saying something that directly affects generational Black people here in America, generally, again, you can accept that information. Now, one of the very first things that you notice about the first lady that spoke is that she is not generational Black, i.e. she is not from, you know, America as we know it today. She's probably come from a different culture. And I actually just did kind of an interview type of call. You may or may not have seen it by now. If you haven't seen it, it'll probably be up in the next couple of days. But the lady in that video was from Nigeria. And see, there's a huge difference between Black people that were raised in environments that were patriarchies versus Black people that were raised here in America under the matriarchy. All right. These are two totally different views on life. And you have to start there. Because, see, the people in the patriarchy, the people that, like I say, generally are going to be African, or they're going to be from the Caribbean, or they even might be from South America, they see things differently. And when we look at their success rate of marriage, it's much higher than that in America. And see, one of the things that a lot of people in America don't want to do is we don't want to compare ourselves to other people who look like us from overseas. All right. And then there's a part of that where we actually have to say that maybe these people know a little bit more about the way culture works and about marriage works than we do. Now, I don't know her full argument yet. You know, we'll get into that, but I wanted to start there. Now, the next thing I want to pull up is kind of what she talked about, saying late 20s, early 30s. And if you've been hanging out on my channel for a while, you know I'm always encouraging women especially to get married in their 20s and men to get married in their early to mid 30s. The reason why I give men more time is because I'm trying to give them time to get their money right. And I'm always encouraging women to date slightly older. Now, I'm not saying 20 years, ladies. I'm generally saying 5 to 7 on average. And the reason why I'm saying this is because most of these people, you know, everybody's talking about traditional marriage, right? And I don't honestly believe most of you watching me will ever get to that quote unquote traditional marriage where the man is taking care of everything. Okay, it's very difficult to do that. I've talked about that in a lot of videos, but it's mainly a financial thing. All right. Because you really, like I say, here in Atlanta, you will probably need well over $100,000 in order to make that happen. And there's very few men that make that kind of money. And Black women, you know, that are watching right now, you might say, well, I can jump to a Latino guy or I can jump to a white guy. And I'm letting you know, period, across the board, there's very few men, period, that make that kind of money. Okay, I think the last stat that I researched, it was about 15% of all of America. Okay, all the men in all of America that make that kind of money. So if you run into a man that makes that kind of money, he's in the top 15%. All right. And then you have to realize a lot of these men are going to get married. They're going to be very picky about the woman that they choose. And so you have to think about all these types of things and whether or not, you're going to be able to do that. But I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, okay, if you don't end up with a guy like that, because you can do a hybrid. So what is a hybrid? A hybrid means you might just work part-time. Maybe you just work, 20 hours a week. Maybe you work doing something via the web where you're just making $1,500 to $2,000 a month, but you can do it at home and it's not really that big of a deal. See, there's a lot of different ways that you can work this out. And a lot of guys don't need a lot of money from you. They might just need a little bit in order to kind of, help things along a little bit. So let's get back to it. So according to brides.com, and I'm going to put it up on the screen, according to brides.com, what the first lady said is true. Over 50% of people are in relationships by the age of 32. All right. So we can jump back and forth and run all over about it. But see, people get into their feelings instead of looking at the facts. And what I'm always encouraging you all to think about is, just like I say, if you go to the grocery store and you're trying to buy some apples or some bananas or some oranges, and you look in the bay and there's only 100, and you know that they're never, ever going to restock. You can say, you know what, I'm not ready for an apple right now. And you can say, I'm going to go and I'm going to look throughout the rest of the grocery store, and then I'll come back and I'm going to pick my apple. And see, that's what you're doing if you basically don't do it in your 20s. So guess what happens when you come back? Well, there are other people in the store, right? And guess which apples are going to go first? The best ones. It's common sense. All right. So again, what the lady is saying makes sense. It's common sense. Good people go first. It doesn't mean there's not good people still on the market. But one of the main reasons why a lot of people in their 30s are frustrated is because over 50% of the good people are gone. All right. It's well over 50%. It's probably closer to 80%. I don't know the true numbers, so don't quote me on that. But what I am saying is a good portion of the people are gone, like I said, before they turn 35. So you cannot deny that people are in relationships, they're getting married. And in the generational Black community, you're basically looking at the fact that less than 25% of Black women are getting married. So if Black women are having a hard time figuring out who's a good man, and then they end up with a guy who wastes their time, and I'm always telling women, okay, that the man knows he likes you within 6 months. All right. He knows he'll probably marry you within, 6 months to a year. If the man has not proposed to you and he is out of school and you have been dating him for over a year, all right, and he has not proposed to you by the time you reach 18 months, you need to cut him. You need to move on. So many women in their 20s waste time with guys that are never going to marry you. They're just hanging out with you and you're a placeholder. All right. And real quick, if you don't know what a placeholder is, it's simply a person. He hanging out with you. He thinks you're fun. He thinks you're cool. He thinks you're cute enough, but he's looking for his real person. All right. And you're just supplying his needs until he finds his person. But guess what? You might be a placeholder for him, but for somebody else, you're their dream woman. All right. So you don't waste time with men that don't want you. And it's the same thing with men. A lot of men, believe it or not, ladies, they go through the same thing. And they end up with women that really don't like them. And a lot of us guys, we think, oh, all women are nurturing and all women are sweet and all women, they don't have ulterior motives. But that's garbage. That is straight up garbage. We know from a lot of TikToks and a lot of Instagram posts that women can be ratchet. They can be evil. Okay. And they can, mess with men's lives. All right. So guys, men, do not waste time with these women. All right. You might think you've come up because she's the cutest thing that you've ever dated. But if her heart is not with you, then you need to leave her alone. You can always tell if a woman's heart is with you because it's the amount of time and energy and attention that she gives you. If she's not giving you all this energy and time and romance and just that feeling like, wow, this girl really likes me. I mean, if you don't feel like, wow, she's really doing it, then she don't like you. Because trust me, If you was her dream dude, she'd be almost losing her mind every day. So let's not play this game, guys, men, okay, that are watching. Do not waste time, okay, on women that don't like you. All right, because a lot of men, the reason why they're out here in all these spaces and they got their little feelings hurt is because they're wasting time on beautiful women that only want to use them for their money. All right, but these women are doing the exact same thing. They're looking for their perfect man, and they will waste your money. Men waste women's time, okay, but women waste men's money.
But then also there are, let's say, a woman is not fertile. And let's say like she's dating a man or whatever,
and he want kids. She
you
gonna be
feel
single.
me? That she gonna be single.
I get, but I'm not saying it's all people, but
Wait,
most
time out.
people
Wait,
are
like
too far.
there comes to a certain
I know what you're
place where you
saying.
want.
Nah, I understand where she's going with that, with the whole fertility thing, but I'm gonna be real. In the world that we live in now, there's so many different ways to get pregnant. Especially, and this is one of the main reasons why I definitely encourage men, especially, to get their money up. Because if you got enough money, fertility is really not that big of a deal. I mean, I don't care how you feel about Kim Kardashian, but, her first two children, were naturally born through her. Her last two children came through a surrogate. All right. And more people are using surrogates. They're all around. Some people, what they do is they go to other countries and they get a surrogate. There's so many fertility drugs. There's so many things that people can do. And again, that's another major reason to get married early. All right. Because generally speaking, if you start to have complications, they're going to get worse as you get older. So it's better to identify them in your 20s and try to go ahead and do what you got to do. If you need surgery, if you need to do this, if you need to do that, because like I know a lot of black women have fibroids. I think I looked at a research study and it was amazing how many black women have fibroids. But in order to get rid of the fibroids, you actually might have to have surgery. You might have to have a lot of things. So the earlier you know, the better. And some of these things, once you have the first child, I don't know necessarily with fibroids. Like I said, I'm not a doctor, but I will say that I know with some ailments, once you have the first child, it's almost like it's just an open door, at that point. So again, the earlier that you start in these things, the better. What you don't want is to have all these complications, and then now you're getting married at 35, and you want to, spend time with your husband for a year before y'all even start. So now you're starting at 37, 38, okay? And then the complications are worse. But another thing, too, is also about health. Okay, everything in America is done via age, but it really shouldn't be. It should be done via health. Because if you're healthy, okay, at 38, you can actually have the body of a 30-year-old, even though you're 38. Because the average American, I'll be honest, they're overweight, they own some kind of drug, their body is going through some kind of, small disease, whether it be diabetes or high blood pressure or something like that. And all of these things are fixable if you just take care of yourself. And everybody, should be exercising at least 2.5 to 3 hours a week. You really need to eat your vegetables like your mama and your daddy told you. And you need to stay away from, all these saturated fats, which means fast food. No, it's a no-no. You need to stay away. I'll be honest, even if you're going to drink alcohol, you need to limit it. Okay, especially the women, if you want to get pregnant, you need to limit that. All right, and then you also need to limit your sugar. Okay, because a lot of us are eating a lot of sugar and we don't recognize that we could be on the borderline of diabetes. All right, and then also stay away from those processed meats. And a lot of the meat actually that you get in a lot of restaurants, and when I'm talking about restaurants, I'm talking about fast food restaurants, is actually processed meat. All right, so you think those hamburgers are real hamburgers, but they're really not. Some of them are processed meat. So if you're going to get a hamburger, you want somebody back there patting that ground beef, and then throwing it on the grill. All right, you want to get that level of meat. And again, this is another reason why I say get your money up, because what you start to understand at a certain level, money equals quality food. Money equals quality products. And you need to eat well. And I've told the guys, if you really want a pretty woman, I don't care if you like makeup or not. The whole thing about it is her hair, her skin, all these things cost money. Okay, they cost big money. And you need to be able to get her to a dermatologist or whatever it is so she can have good quality skin so that you will be more attracted to her. All right. And I've talked about this a little bit here and there. And I know some guys are like, oh, crap. But I'm just being real. And I know the ladies out there can feel me, because even if you put something like I said, I don't know how each woman is, but when I've talked to women and then I'll tell them, hey, I think a $3,000 to $4,000 a year allowance for beauty, is something I would look into. And a lot of the women I've talked to have been like, yeah, we might need to work on it here and there, but that's a good start.
Let's redirect the conversation to talk about, are you too toxic to be in a relationship? Because we're going off on hella tangents right now.
Can you take the 8 reasons why?
Okay. So here are some of the reasons that some people fail at their relationships, and with respect to toxicity. So we have lack of accountability. You want your partner to make you a better person. You have low emotional intelligence. I mentioned this earlier.
The safe space, Oliver.
There has to be a safe space to be emotionally.
Back to it. This is a hot topic.
It really is.
Again, if you've been tracking with me for a while, the 2 biggest things that I want, you to look for in your particular person, and I don't care if you're a man or a woman, this should be some of the things that you're looking for. You're really looking for common sense, and then you're looking also for discipline. Okay, people they love to use all these different terms, but it really boils back down to that. Because if you have those 2 things, then what happens is, even if you're personally going through something toxic, or the person that you're dating is going through something toxic, they should know a little bit about, how they are, what's going on with them, how they feel about themselves, and then they can use that information to actually go seek some kind of help. But see, one of the problems is that when somebody's been toxic for a long period of time, they really don't know what they should be doing. And a lot of times they think that's normal, especially if they're around other toxic people. And remember, what people say is that the person that you're with, is basically an average of their 4 to 5 closest friends. All right. So again, if somebody's toxic, then their friends know it. Their friends know it. And then you also have to look at people who have no friends. You run into that every once in a while where somebody say, I don't have any friends. I'm talking about women that don't have women friends, or men that don't have men friends. And I'm not saying you got to be buddy every 5 minutes hanging out with them, but every single person should have at least 2 or 3 people that they can literally call on, the phone and talk to them for 30 minutes to an hour. And if somebody does not have that, honestly, that is a sign of them being toxic. Okay, because it's not always just about the direct concept of toxicity, as in it hurts you. So you have other things like depression. And depression is really where the person is hurting themselves. Okay, and they might not necessarily hurt you per se, but what will happen is over time, they might check out. Okay, not just check out the relationship, they're really checking out of life. So it's important for you to find people that are healthy, but at the same time, I want you to pay attention to how they deal with their own stresses. Okay, because again, I don't think a lot of people talk about that, because we all gonna go through stress. All right, I've gone through major depression. I never thought I would go through, but at the end of it, I did start to recognize, hold on, I'm acting a little weird. And then I had 1 or 2 people kind of tell me that they saw some things. And so then I had to check myself. All right. And so that's really what you're looking for. You're looking for a person that will check themselves. It's not necessarily important that they be perfect, because you're not going to find, perfection. Like I told you, you're probably looking at about 70% of what you're looking for. So with that in mind, all right, you want a person who's always striving every single day to be healthy. That's the best thing you can ask for, is somebody who is trying to be physically healthy, mentally healthy, spiritually healthy, and they're working on that every single day of their lives. And if you did not know, now you know that all of you should be doing that every single day. Because if you allow, like I've said, from a spiritual perspective, if you allow the devil an inch, he's going to take 10,000 miles. All right. So you cannot give him anything. And health in the body actually does affect your mental. You can Google it if you want, but like eating too much sugar actually causes depression. Right? And see, a lot of people don't even understand that when you're drinking coffee in the morning and then you have to sugar it down, what's happening is you're giving your body this caffeine stimulation to wake it up, but the sugar is actually putting you back to sleep. All right, but it's putting you to sleep in a different way. And so there are several people out here, especially a lot of fitness people, that will tell you you should actually go on a fast of coffee and caffeine and try to get away from it for about 30 days. Because what happens is you break the caffeine cycle because you think you need caffeine to wake up in the morning, but a lot of times you don't. What's really going on is you got too much sugar in your system. And the sugar is basically putting you to sleep. And it takes about, I just looked it up for my own self, it takes about 2 weeks for sugar to fully get out of your system. So whatever you're eating today, you eat a big old piece of cake. Like, I know right now as I'm shooting this is a Memorial Day weekend. So a lot of you guys might be eating cake and pie and a whole lot of other good stuff. But it's like now that ain't going to be out of you to almost Father's Day.
You can't have you can't have B without A. I'm sorry. Like, there's literally no way for you to not be cognizant of the bullshit you're doing and still call yourself accountable. Everybody has a journey. No one's going to make it happen overnight, but you got to start somewhere. And you have to take accountability and quit blaming other people.
Yeah, but sometimes...
All right, so one of the things about accountability, and I just want to kind of put this out here really quick, is it depends upon the type of person. See, some people think all of these things are just in everybody. And again, we have to think about the types of people that they're running into. And most of the people, like I said, especially the women, on the panel, like I said, they're probably a little bit more instinct driven. And when you start to deal with instinct driven women, most of them have no problem with taking accountability. That's just a part of being instinct driven. Like for me, I'm instinct driven. I have no problem really with taking accountability. The people that generally have the hardest time taking accountability are actually thinking based people. Although hard types can sometimes be in that role as well. But when you're really talking about hard types or thinking types, you're talking about supportive types. All right. And so when you're dealing with anybody that's supportive, and the heart and the thinking are both supportive types, they generally don't like to take accountability. But at the same time, they don't like to take the lead. Does this make sense? So the lead is the person that almost always gets hit. It's one of the main reasons why right now, a lot of people are kind of beating up on Black women. Why? Because they are in the lead. America Blacks are a matriarchy. They're not a patriarchy. So who do you blame when things are going wrong? You blame the CEO, you blame the president, you blame the people who are in charge. All right. Now, I know that most of the Black women that follow me are not in charge. They don't, you guys are not doing that at all. But you need to have an understanding of why a lot of, Black men are trying to put Black women on the hot seat. Because it's whoever is, in charge, whoever is out here, talking, whoever is doing the thing. Basically, the instinct-driven people are almost always put on the hot seat. And it's very frustrating for a lot of them when they look back at a lot of the thinking types and a lot of the heart types who don't want to take accountability. Like recently, I was watching this particular video and there was a guy on there and he had went out with this lady on a date. And the lady was very frustrated because, she actually recorded a part of the conversation. She threw it up on TikTok, but you couldn't see the guy's face because she had her phone, kind of pointed at her food. And she literally recorded the guy saying, I don't want you to work. I basically want you to stay in the house and be, just have my kids and take care of my kids and clean up the house. I'm not going to give you any kind of spending money, of your own. And she basically said, so you really want me to be a slave? And the guy was like, well, some of you women might see it that way, but, it's not really like that. But yeah. And it was so amazing because I could tell he was a thinking type, 100%. And he's probably listened to a lot of instinct-driven men out here, some that were angry based upon, their situation. And because of that, he's now formulated an opinion that will work for him in this scenario. So he wants all of his cake, He wants to eat it all. He wants to have the world, but he doesn't recognize what he just said was so toxic and so weird, and that no woman would put herself in that situation. And it wasn't so much that, like I've told you guys before, thinking types, even, male thinking types will get married quicker than I will. You guys are actually the number one group, period, male or female, to get married. 100%. I have no problem with saying that. Okay? But it's important who you're listening to. It's important how you form your opinion. All right? And your opinion has to be formed in respect and love. If it's not going to work. And the reason why I say this is because a lot of times when people are talking about accountability, or they're talking about a personality, or they're talking about this, that, and the third, what they're generally going into is their experience. And their experience based off of generally the limited amount of people that they run into. And a lot of times when I'm listening to a lot of women talk about it, in these spaces, again, remember, a lot of the women are instinct driven. They're generally talking about heart types and thinking types. And generally when we're dealing with men that are in these spaces, okay, many times they were a thinking type, and now they've stretched themselves because they were hurt, or they might be an instinct type, okay, again, that was hurt by another instinct type woman. All right? Because it's like I've told you guys before, the instinct type women are the hardest to get married, and the heart-based men are the hardest to get married. But there are reasons why these things work this way. But no matter what, both can get married as long as they're lining themselves up, for the best possible solution. And they're kind of seeing a little bit about what the other side wants in order for them to win. All right. So we never want to truly beat up on people. And I think, that's why I don't want this conversation to go. I'm actually about to stop it here, even though there's a lot more video to this. But I just kind of have to stop it right there because I don't want to go too deep without, being able to fully talk everything out. So hopefully this helped you. Remember, there's a lot of information down there in that description. I'm always talking about marriage. That's the main thing that I talk about over here. And I also try to, remove a lot of these issues, that people are saying between the sexes, because we got to kind of get rid of that and understand that men are good and women are good, that there are bad men out here. Yes, there are bad men out here, but there are also bad women out here as well. So we need to be able to understand which are the good ones, which are the ones that will bless us, which are the ones that we're the most compatible with, which are the ones that will line themselves up so that we can have the best solution, so that when we have our marriages, they're really, really good, they glorify God, okay, and that everything works out, all right? So please like, please subscribe, and I'm going to see you all in the very next video.